As we've been reporting, the Trump Organization and its chief financial officer are pleading not guilty to charges brought down by the Manhattan District Attorney this afternoon. The former president's company and its chief financial officer are facing 15 felony counts. They include tax fraud, larceny, and falsifying business records. Former President Trump himself has not been charged with a crime. Mr. Trump attacked the charges, saying, quote, "The political witch hunt by the radical left Democrats, with New York now taking over the assignment, continues. It is dividing our country like never before." And Ron Fischetti joins me now. He's a lawyer for former President Trump. Thank you for being here. So this indictment comes after a lengthy investigation into taxes and fringe benefits and bonuses that Mr. Weisselberg allegedly received. That would seem pretty straightforward to prove or disprove. Are you saying that nothing untoward was done and that everything was 100% above board?
I'm saying that they haven't indicted or charged Donald Trump. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to clear that up, because I've been seeing talking heads on CNN and MSNBC talking about the fact that what Fischetti's saying about Trump is just spin, and naturally he's going to be charged. After all, it's a lengthy investigation by Cy Vance into Donald Trump, getting his tax returns, going twice to the Supreme Court, and he's going to be charged. Well, he's not charged. He's not named in this indictment at all. It's 24 pages of people saying that one man who's named cheated on his taxes for a car and for an apartment and maybe for tuition. And somehow it benefited Donald Trump's companies. How they prove it benefits a company is completely beyond me. But he's not charged at all. And as far as we're concerned, with the investigations that have been going on for years, and I'm not talking about the investigations from the time he came down the escalator, the Mueller investigation, or anything like that. I'm talking about what they've done here. He's been investigated by the Southern District of New York for a long period of time with nothing. And then it went to the Attorney General's office. No indictments, no charges. And then it went to Cy Vance, who said a number of times, and people on his behalf, that he was going to get the tax returns. And once he got the tax returns, it would show all the criminal activities of the former president. And he went to the United States Supreme Court twice and got the tax returns. Millions and millions of documents. And on top of that, all the documents that Donald Trump supplied to him through his lawyers in this case. Right. And nothing. But no charges whatsoever in this indictment. Nothing mentioning Donald Trump himself. So as far as we're concerned, this investigation's over.
But, sir, we're not talking about some kind of fringe character here. We're talking about the chief financial officer for the Trump Organization. I
understand that. Who got a car and who got an apartment. Okay?
But how can
you what organization around here doesn't give a car to a chief financial officer? Or maybe use a corporate apartment? Nobody has been charged with this since I've been a lawyer, and I've been doing this for 50 years. This is a nonsense indictment.
But how can it not raise questions about the former president's involvement here? How can it not raise questions?
The former president has 3,500 employees worldwide, and has any number of properties, golf courses, hotels, everything. You think he has everything under his finger, that he knows what every person does here? Who gets a car and doesn't pay for it properly? He uses it for business, he uses it for pleasure, but doesn't indict himself for doing that? Nobody gets charged with things like this. It's never been done before. This is a civil case, and should have been a civil case, and doesn't involve him at all, or they would have named him. They would have named him in the indictment for doing something wrong. They had 24 pages. They've had investigations for 3 years, and they didn't. And as far as we're concerned, their investigation's over. And those people, those talking heads that say, well, this is just the first step. What do you mean the first step? What are we supposed to do, wait for another indictment and then come down and argue that? How can I argue against something that's not even charged?
Well, we will certainly continue to follow this. 15 indictments for the chief financial officer of Trump Organization. But Ron Fischetti, lawyer for Trump, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And for more on these new charges, I want to bring in Nicole Sganga. She is CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter. Hi there, Nicole. Thank you for being here. So can you tell us, what do these charges actually mean and how serious are they?
Yeah, hi, Caitlin. Good to be with you. 15 seems to be the number here. You mentioned it earlier, looking over this indictment. We have 15 felony counts, and prosecutors are alleging a scheme of tax fraud that lasted 15 years, over a 15-year period. And this is far more serious than predicted, certainly more serious than defense attorneys were anticipating, than Ron Fischetti, who we just heard from, was anticipating when I spoke to him earlier this week. This is an incredibly detailed, comprehensive indictment accusing Trump Organization CFO Allen Weisselberg of avoiding taxes on $1.7 million in income. You can break it down into 3 different categories: tax fraud as a scheme, grand larceny, and falsifying business records. Crimes that, if convicted, you say 7 years maximum in prison for a reach of 15 counts. That's punishable of up to 105 years in prison. Now, this is a tax offense. Certainly, we're not suggesting that anyone is going to land themselves behind bars for more than a century, but this is the kind of indictment that prosecutors think and are hoping will persuade Allen Weisselberg, who has been, resistant so far, and perhaps other Trump Organization employees, to cooperate with the investigation. We know that there are 2 ongoing investigations led by the New York Manhattan DA's office and the New York State Attorney General. And so this is the kind of serious indictment that prosecutors hope will flip Allen Weisselberg.
Right. That seems to be the key point here, that, Weisselberg's charges come after a several-year investigation into former President Trump's business affairs. Can you tell us a little bit more about, how these charges, what they tell us about the scope of the case?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it right there. The district attorney's office, along with the New York State Attorney General, has been investigating this case for more than 3 years. Certainly, it's the first step in many. We could see more charges. The grand jury is going to be sitting until November, and they can return more indictments between now and then. We fully expect that they will return more indictments. Now, prosecutors are hoping that this road leads to former President Donald Trump. You heard from his attorney, Ron Fischetti there. There have been no charges filed against the former president yet, but it remains to be seen if more, are coming down the road. We heard a lot about Allen Weisselberg in this indictment, but there are also other associates of the Trump Organization, of President Trump, that are not yet named in the indictment. People who might be other Trump Organization employees, other members of the Trump family. So it remains to be seen if more charges and more figures will emerge in the coming days. Of course, like we mentioned, prosecutors are looking for Weisselberg to change his mind.
And Nicole, you've been following this so closely and breaking it down for us. What should we be watching for in the coming days and weeks? Kind of where do you think this investigation actually goes from here?
Yeah, well, we mentioned, of course, Weisselberg. The big question is whether or not he will cooperate with investigators moving forward. He's been a Trump loyalist since the 70s, worked for the Trump Organization for decades. And today we heard from defense attorneys. They came out with statements that mirrored that of former President Trump, who has called this investigation a witch hunt. Weisselberg's attorneys called it un-American, a political prosecution, but these are not arguments that are going to stand up in court. In fact, even, the assistant district attorney in court today, I can, read you part of what he said to address this. He said, to address what this case is not about, it's not about politics. This investigation, which is ongoing, has been thorough, careful, and proper. And you notice the word ongoing there. The Trump Organization, CFO Allen Weisselberg, and the Trump Payroll Corporation all pled not guilty to all charges today. We expected that, but, Weisselberg was handcuffed on his way into that courtroom. Over the next few days, weeks, and months, attorneys are going to be consulting with their client to determine his path forward. The next date that we will see him in court definitively, September 20th. That's when his status conference is, but we could see more indictments, Caitlin, between now and then.
So to be continued. Well, I know you'll be watching it all for us. Thank you so much, Nicole Sganga, for your reporting and sharing it with us.
Thank you.